Welcome to Cyber Life, a special show on cybersecurity. Recently, the world has experienced massive cyber attack about two world sectors. Even security provider companies are also a victim to attack. Phishing, ransomware, crypto hijacking are some of top cybersecurity threats and trends for 2022. So, what should we do to save ourselves, our company, as well as business in coming days? Adli Wahid, the senior internet security specialist from Ethnic Australia, is present to the studio to discuss the issue with us. Our today's topic: cyber challenges, risk and opportunities. Adli, welcome to our studio to discuss the important topic.
Thank you for having me, Shurva. It's a pleasure to be part of this program.
As we discussed, and you know that recent some years or some days ago, not only in Bangladesh, a massive attack we have noticed throughout the world, in every country, in financial sector, private entities, and everything. So, what do you think in 2023? What challenges is coming for us?
Cybersecurity is a huge topic, and therefore I think looking at moving forward in the future, 2023 and beyond, I would say that we will be faced, or many organizations will be faced more or less by the same challenges. And I'm saying this because I feel that many organizations are still grappling or struggling with many of the cybersecurity issues. And what I mean by that is many organizations are not prepared to deal with many of the cybersecurity issues or incidents that can disrupt their organization, that may affect the reputation of the organization, and also that will impact the customers. And we can go into the details of this, but to me, there are many factors to this. One is, maybe not enough resources. The second, maybe not enough resources, not enough awareness and knowledge about the attacks and how to prepare for them. And thirdly, maybe not enough planning that goes into place when thinking about how to secure the organization.
Developing countries like Bangladesh, what challenges we face?
So for countries like Bangladesh and many others similar to Bangladesh, I feel that one of the main challenges, especially after doing a lot of engagement in this region with multiple organizations, with businesses, with law enforcement, with the CERTs, I find that the biggest challenge is lack of awareness in this topic itself. Because as I said, cybersecurity is a huge topic. Sometimes people look at it from one angle, for example, just network security, so they just buy a firewall, or they look at it from the perspective of securing data, so they look at encryption. But those are just two types of what we call controls or mechanism to secure things on the internet. There are also other aspects of it, which to me means that from an organizational perspective, you should look at cybersecurity as a mechanism to protect, number one, your information assets. What's critical to you? Maybe it's business information, maybe it's data that you use. For a hospital, data of patients, right? And the work process. So all of those things have to be secured. And you cannot just do cybersecurity without any planning, right? And this will start from the very beginning, which means that when you design the network, before you invest in any IT initiatives, you should look at the cybersecurity components of it. And part of this is having the expertise to give input while you are developing, going through this phase, what needs to be done to do cybersecurity. So once you have that in place, right, you have to operate the network, so you must have security. Then you have to be ready in case there is a breach. And as you mentioned earlier, even big organization gets compromised or experience cybersecurity incident. So it means that this can happen to anybody. But as a proactive or pragmatic cybersecurity professional, I must also think, what can I do to minimize the impact of a cybersecurity incident? If it happens, after all of my preparation, if it still happens, what can we do as an organization and react to it? So I think the biggest challenge is that having that education and knowledge. And I understand that for many organizations, this subject is very new. And sometimes they just gloss over it, hoping for the best. You know, let's buy a few solutions and hope for the best, instead of addressing it, you know, in a structured way. They just gloss over it. So that could be one of the biggest challenges.
So from your discussion, I wanted to ask you, so which weak point especially do you find in Bangladesh in cyber industry?
So it's not fair for me to comment Bangladesh in general because I don't have the data, right, the data, but I can talk about it generally with organizations. I feel that, first of all, when it comes to the weakness of system is people. Not hiring people or professionals that can help you with this, right? So in many organizations, what happened is that the IT people is expected to do cybersecurity. It can work if the organization is small, right? Having said that, some of the cybersecurity topic can be new or a different domain altogether for the IT people. So they need time to explore and to know about this subject matter. Second of all, I think if you have the right expert, you can get a lot of feedback in improving the organization. From there, I think you can then strategically look at the threats that is facing the organization. No two organizations is the same in terms of what they are facing in terms of threat and risk, right? Yes, everybody faces the risk of ransomware, but everybody runs different components in the network, different operating system, different network structure, different size of organizations. Some people have more employees than less. So with the right cybersecurity advice from the cybersecurity professional that you hire internally, it can help you design or redo, the approach for improving the cybersecurity within the organization. So it's a step-by-step process. You cannot just be from not secure to secure overnight, Shubho.
It will not be done overnight.
It cannot be done overnight.
So what's your suggestions, especially for the Bangladeshis? How can we expertise more, or how can we produce more cyber professionals?
So I feel that one is to encourage people to go into this field, right? And that can happen in many ways. One is through education. So if you are a student, maybe if there are options to do cybersecurity, if they can get this knowledge before they go into the workforce, that will be really beneficial for organization that is looking for support and capabilities in cybersecurity. Secondly, if you are already in IT, for example, you should have opportunities also to gain knowledge in cybersecurity. Now, like I said, cybersecurity is a big word. It can mean different things to different people. So if you're managing network, you want to learn about cybersecurity from the network perspective.
Sure.
That is to secure the communications, doing intrusion detection via the network, because a lot of the attacks happen over the network. So that's one of the biggest attack surface, through the network, right? Through email, through the system, and so on and so forth. If you're a system administrator, you must know how to secure your operating system, the infrastructure, right? Many of the ransomware cases that we have seen, right? Yes, ransomware, you can call it a sophisticated attack, but if you break it down, there are various components before attacker achieve their ultimate goal in encrypting the computer, right? And then ask you for the money. Many of those steps are actually basic steps. So for example, they will send a phishing email, and you click on it. So you download the payload of the malware in the computer. So that's second step. So if you have an antivirus that can detect that, you can still prevent that from happening. But let's say you are infected. Now you are encrypted. If you don't have backup, then you probably have to pay them for money. So what I mean to say is that if you are managing security for the organization, right, in terms of increasing awareness of cybersecurity professionals, they must be good in all these different domains and discipline. Now, the issue is sometimes for an organization, they only have one person to do everything, which is impossible, right? Because this is a continuous effort, right? 24/7, 365 kind of work, right? So you need a team, basically, ideally, right? And need multi-skilled people within the organization. Even for developers, people who are developing applications, they must have security built in the application, so that we don't wait for an incident to happen and then try to fix things, because then it might be too late already. So encouraging people in the different domains to do cybersecurity is really, really beneficial, or would be beneficial for the organization.
So it's very clear from your discussion that every institution need two separate team. One is cyber security is different,
Yeah.
and another is IT is different.
Yeah.
And both team will work differently or independently.
Yeah.
So do you think will in 2023 new hacking tactics will emerge?
So when it comes to hacking tactics and techniques in the cybersecurity world, so Shuvok, my background is incident response
Yeah.
and forensics, right? So over the years of me being involved in this work, many organizations has published or documented the technique and techniques. So I don't know if the viewers is aware, there is one framework called the MITRE attack framework, which breaks down the different techniques or tactics that attackers normally use to achieve their objective.
Yeah.
Right? So normally an attacker, if I can go back a little bit, attacker will have small objectives and then a big goal. So for example, the goal is to steal information from the organization. To achieve that, they have to do multiple steps, right? Try to guess the password.
Yeah.
So if you have weak username password, they can get in, right? Another way to get in is maybe to find a vulnerability on the server and then to exploit that if there is a weakness. So that's another way of getting in. Another way to get in is to phishing, trick you to give me your password,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So an attacker have various ways. So once they get in, they also have multiple techniques that they can use to hide their presence, to steal information, or to move to another server. Now, if you look at many of the cybersecurity incident, if we dissect it, right, we can see that the tactics is not really new or revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
It's not really sophisticated. It's the techniques and tactics that we have seen since I started working in 2006 in this field. So more or less it's the same thing. What has changed? So what has changed is that attackers now have many options, right? In terms of how they get in, because we are using more software, right? More application, the IoTs, for example. So technologies and devices that the defenders may not be familiar with.
Yeah.
So attackers have an advantage because now there are a lot of niche devices or niche tool where they can exercise the same tactics.
Yeah.
So I would argue the tactics have not changed much, but attackers now have more options to get in
Yeah.
and to disrupt your organization.
Exactly. So attackers always try to attack on financial sector.
Yeah.
So especially in the context of Bangladesh. So what is your advice?
So the financial sector has always been a target. I remember when starting into this work, there was a huge phishing incident, which was new back then when I was starting out, and we had to get all the banks together to explain to them, what is going on. Now the financial sector is interesting for two things. One, because of the money, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I think there is a misconception still that attackers need to break into the bank to steal money. In reality, what happens is that attackers do not really target the banking system. I mean, there are one or two cases where banking system is compromised and then money being sent.
Yeah.
But they go to the low-hanging fruits.
Yeah, sure.
Easy target, which is the users,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes I feel that there is a contradiction. Financial sector wants to secure their infrastructure so much, so they protect it, they build a fortress around it,
Yeah.
but they leave the user hanging,
Yeah.
right? So attacker will shift their focus from the bank because it's hard for them to break into the bank, for example, the financial system, and most likely they will get detected.
Yeah.
So why waste time there when you can just focus on the users? And I feel this is sometimes where organization, they don't have a complete picture of the risk profile, right?
Yeah.
So, and therefore I feel that this is also why sometimes organization collect a lot of information and then somehow forgot to secure the data.
Yeah.
Right? The good news about financial institutions is that there are many mature practice already in some of the global financial institutions. I also happen to work with a financial institution back in the days. So there's a lot of documentations out there, compliance, all of which will help the organization to secure not just their business, but also their stakeholders and their customers. And if I can add one more thing, when you say that There should be a separation between IT and cyber, so two teams.
Yeah.
I've seen in financial institutions, sometimes they even have 3-4 teams in cybersecurity alone.
Yeah.
So they have the incident response team, they have the cyber threat intelligence team, right? And they have the infrastructure security team, right?
Yeah.
They are working together with the IT, right?
Yeah, we are discussing an important issue. So, do you think ransomware will dominate still?
Yeah, I think ransomware will still continue to be affecting organizations. And the reason being is simple, Shuvo. What is the goal of ransomware actors? Money, right?
Yeah.
And as long as that is the motivation and they have a means to do it, definitely ransomware will be there affecting organization. And therefore, I think organization should have ransomware as a scenario when they are building a cybersecurity program, which means that they must have all of the protection needed against ransomware. And number two, minimizing the impact of a ransomware incident if they have it. Because as we have seen before in 2022, organizations like hospitals were affected by ransomware.
Yeah.
And that is very serious because not only it affects the organization, but it can also potentially affect lives of patients whose records are not accessible, and therefore medical treatment cannot be performed on them.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think talent shortage, especially in cybersecurity industry, it will be a challenging for us?
Yes, definitely. I think not just for Bangladesh. I think this is a global phenomenon where there is a lot of roles for cybersecurity in many organizations that are not filled because of lack of talent. And also what this means for organization is that even if you have people, they still need time to be trained to perform certain function within the organization. So it is something for an organization to consider in terms of how do we solve this particular problem. But Shuvo, I'm always hopeful because I feel that yes, we have this problem, but on the other hand, I feel that there are an increasing number of people who are interested to go into this field and are already doing this work. Sometimes you have the people, but you don't have the roles within the organization. So I think organizations should not just worry about whether or not there's going to be talent shortage, but do you have roles for people to perform some of this function within the organization? So it should be looked from this particular aspect as well.
What do you think? Activism versus cyber professionalism. Between the two, activists are one step forward. So why do this happen?
So that's a very good question. When I was working with the National CERT, we dealt with a lot of security breaches performed by so-called hacktivists, right? So for the audience who may not be aware of this issue, so hacktivists are people who breach network, not for money, right? But because to promote a cause or promote an agenda. To me, as a defender, this is illegal, right? I mean, if you break into someone's network, that is still illegal. And not only that, you are potentially causing problems to an organization or to an entity. I feel that if you want to voice a concern about a particular issue, there are other channels to do it without breaking into people's network, because you might just make things worse, right? So I remember an incident where some hacktivists wanted to raise an issue, and they hack into everything, including universities, government, hospitals. All these institutions have nothing to do with the issue, right? But because of your activity, you might expose them for other attackers to come in and to exploit the network. Now, what is the difference between hacktivists and cybersecurity professionals? I think it's ethics, right? Cybersecurity professionals have access to the most critical networks, to the most sensitive data. What is preventing this person from selling this information, right? Or helping someone to destroy this information? To me, it's ethics. So in this world, cybersecurity professional, I think ethics is at the very highest level. So other than your technical knowledge and technical education, ethics is really valued, right? Because you are defending maybe someone's reputation or someone's life or the country's economy, for example. Imagine if all the banks were shut down or infected with malware or disrupted, potentially the economy might be affected by this. So yes, ethics is very critical, and trust, right?
So we have seen some days ago, especially Twitter data breaches, then Facebook data breaches.
Yeah.
As a general user, this is alarming news for us,
Yeah.
especially because we depend on them for our data, because we share many kinds of our personal data, especially on Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah.
So what should we do personally to protect us?
Yeah, so I think this is where the role of education in data literacy is very important. Now, we have spoken a lot about organizations, right? Securing organizations and all that, which is not really a problem because organizations have money and resources to do it. And if they have the will, they can do something about it. But normal users, if you can imagine, are left on their own. Where do they get cybersecurity education? Where do they get cybersecurity awareness about, subscribing to a service which is free, not realizing that the free thing that they get is because they are giving away their data in exchange, right?
Sure.
So, and also they do not realize that organizations, like the ones that you mentioned, may seem big, right, in terms of size, but what if they don't have good cybersecurity hygiene and practice, right? So I think if people have this understanding, they will be more cautious about subscribing to services and also sharing with this organization. And also, if they are aware of that, maybe they are also aware if my data get exposed, what can I do? Or what rights do I have? And things like that. So I think it boils down to education, which is a responsibility of everybody.
So what are the challenges for emerging technologies like IoT, unmanned vehicles, etc.?
Yeah, to me, the challenges are pretty much the same. Like if this technology is not built with security in mind, it will be exposed and it will be breached, right? And depending on where this technology is being used, right? So there's an unmanned vehicle, maybe carrying a lot of passengers. Yeah. If they can be breached remotely, then it may potentially affect people's lives, right? Yeah. IoT devices, maybe they are part of sensor network. If it's breached and sending wrong information, then it may affect some services. Again, affecting the country or the economy or people. So I feel that if the new technology is great, but what we should ask is, what are the security features in this new technology? Has security been considered in the design? I can talk a little bit about IoT. Many of the IoT devices that we have, basically devices that is connected to the internet and is performing maybe non-computational function. Many of them have maybe almost no security, right? Default password, admin, root, or a web interface that allows people to basically manage the device. So whose responsibility is it to secure these devices? I think the people who are developing it. But also, we cannot just blame one party. I think those who are making purchases of these devices should check also before they buy and deploy, right? Where is the security? If there is a security issue, who do I contact? Can it get fixed, right? And how long will it get fixed? So it's two sides that have to be, concerned about this issue before we can have real security.
Yeah, it's okay. So I wanted to from you that every institution, it's maybe bank, it's maybe non-VF institution, any kinds of it maybe. Then especially we know that third party provide any kinds of solutions there, and the institution uses that solution. So especially in that case, really the institution have no special capacity to justify or testify that solutions. Is it really 100% okay or not? In that case, what should we do?
So I think that is a very good point, because we cannot operate without third-party solutions, right? We have to use software that is written by someone else, and that organization may use libraries or files or program that is developed by someone else. However, there is a theme in cybersecurity over the years, recently especially, where we look at all of the components that is part of the service that we are offering, which means that we really identify what they are, who is responsible for them, and then make specific assessment of its security. And there are many ways we can do this, right? One is we look at the track record of the company in terms of do they have a security page, What was the latest vulnerabilities that they have? Is it a lot? Is it less? Right? And then we can have conversation and collaboration within the organization to say that, if we have a security issue, what is your response time? And make maybe contract based on those and so on and so forth. So I feel that organizations are not totally helpless. It's just that you need to spend a bit more time in doing the assessment and then collaborating with the organization so that if something comes up with their product, you have the support and you can fix it right away. Or you can pick a more secure option, right? Maybe there are 3 vendors. Pick the most secure one or the one with the best security practice.
Yeah, so do you think dark web, deepfake, and newly emerging ChatGPT, these things are alarming for us or not?
Wow, we can have a conversation all day on this. All right, so let me start with the dark web. Okay, why should organization care about the dark web? So dark web is a place on the internet that is not accessible to the public normally. I mean, you can access it, but you need special tools. And therefore, it is a place where cyber criminals use to exchange services of their products that they offer or what they have stolen from one another. So from the organizational perspective, this is one of the places that we should monitor, right? If you don't have the capability, you can get cyber intelligence or threat intelligence feeds from organization that does this. And there are many of them that does it. ChatGPT, it's a more recent thing.
Yeah.
I started playing with it as well. I think one of the biggest concern about it is that criminals will make use of it to make their job faster. So one of the things that I've seen is that you can actually talk with the ChatGPT and say, I want to build a program, a script that does A, B, C, D, and E, and then it helps them do it. Right. So it speeds things up.
Yeah.
So I think for context, what we should care about is that criminals have been very active in this space, as it's a full-time job for them, right?
Yeah.
So this is just going to make them do it faster. So what it means is that if you're not prepared in your basic cybersecurity, you are going to be more at risk, right?
Yeah.
So please do something now and react to it.
So we are about to end our show.
Okay.
So last question to you.
Mm-hmm.
So how we are prepared for growing cybersecurity challenges?
I think the question has to be answered by the organizations or the individual itself, right? So as a third party, I can say you're ready or you are not ready based on what I can see or based on your best practice, your processes, your people, but only you know yourself. I think you need to have self-reflection and self-assessment with the help of expert. I'm quite hopeful because recently I attended a cybersecurity conference in Dhaka with many cybersecurity professionals. So there is passion in this domain, but I feel that many cybersecurity professionals in many organizations do not get the support. They have big ideas, big plans. They are aware of this topic, but sometimes they don't have the opportunity to talk with management to get the support. Or they don't get to speak to somebody who can have the authority to say that we need awareness for the common users so that it will complement the work that you do inside the organization, right? And keep everybody safe at the same time as well.
Yeah, so can you say something about our viewers?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is a journey, as we say in the organization. There are definitely many areas that you have to look at. And it begins with self-assessment or self-reflection. What you have, what you are trying to do, and what are the threats and risks that is exposing the organization. And from there, you can take steps to improve it. And I feel that it is a very straightforward approach. It's just that you have to spend the time and the resources to do it. And everybody can do this. And hopefully, you can secure your organization moving forward and you don't experience cybersecurity incidents. And I wish you all the best in doing cybersecurity for your organization.
Thanks to you to give us your valuable time and discuss the important issue with us.
It has been a pleasure and thank you for having me.
So far we have discussed various issues of cybersecurity. One thing is clear from here, new threats will continue to come. So there is no alternative to skilled manpower to prevent these attacks by individuals, businesses and the states as a whole. As a cyber professionals, there is no substitute for keeping yourselves up to date with new updates regularly. Thanks Mr. Adli Wahid again to give us his valuable time to discuss such an important issues. May the cyber world be safe. With this hope, ends up today's program. Bye bye. Bye.